In an age where truth and falsehood are intertwined, where good and evil are mixed together, it becomes incredibly difficult to distinguish what is right from what is wrong, what should be done, and what should not. We cannot discern everything on our own, for human strength is limited. Surrender yourself and trust in God. He will guide you and reveal to you what you need to know. Welcome back to Eternal Light. Today, we will uncover the 7 types of people we should not help, because this is something God does not want us to do. Let us follow God's guidance together. And if you happen to be one of these 7 types of people, do not worry. Eternal Light will show you how to better yourself. So make sure to stay until the end of this video, comment amen to show your gratitude to God, and let's begin. Under a sky stretching like a silk cloth embroidered with tiny specks of starlight, the history of humankind continues to turn with tales of kindness and the mistakes that often stem from it. People tend to believe that helping others is always the right thing to do, a noble virtue worthy of praise. But if kindness is not guided by wisdom, it is no different from a blazing torch in the hands of the blind, ready to burn both the bearer and those nearby. The Bible, a treasure trove of human wisdom, has issued countless warnings about helping the wrong people in the wrong way. These warnings are not meant to suppress compassion, but to guide it in the right direction, much like a soldier tightening the reins of a war horse to prevent it from galloping off a cliff. Let me tell you a story. Long ago, King Solomon, the wisest king in history, found himself in what seemed to be a simple situation. 2 women came before him, each claiming that the living child was hers. A dispute that might have been resolved with a little compassion, comforting both women, sharing love, and perhaps attempting a reconciliation. But Solomon did not act on emotion. He did not rush to aid the seemingly weaker party simply because she wept bitterly. Instead, he used wisdom to test the truth, suggesting that the baby be cut in 2. It was at that moment that the truth was revealed. The real mother was willing to give up her claim so that the child might live. This teaches us an important lesson. Helping others is not merely an act of kindness, but an art of wisdom. Had Solomon acted purely on sentiment, the child might have fallen into the hands of a deceiver, or worse, suffered the fate of the sword. Why then is kindness not always right? Because the world is full of those eager to exploit it. Mercy without wisdom is like an open door, inviting both thieves and travelers alike. The Bible reminds us, do not withhold good from those to whom it is due when it is in your power to act. Proverbs 3, verse 27. This means not everyone deserves our help, and not every act of kindness yields good results. A loving father who spoils his child, never correcting them when they do wrong, is not truly loving them. He is destroying them. Similarly, offering aid indiscriminately can make us a tool for the deceitful, and sometimes we ourselves will bear the painful consequences. The Bible issues many warnings on this subject. In 1 Timothy 5, verse 8, the Apostle Paul writes, "Anyone who does not provide for their relatives, and especially for their own household, has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever." This is not just a reminder of family responsibility, but an indication that assistance must be prioritized. Not everyone has the right to demand our compassion. Moreover, 2 Thessalonians 3:10 states, "The one who is unwilling to work shall not eat." A lazy person who refuses to make an effort yet constantly expects help from others does not deserve it. If we continue to assist such people, are we not encouraging irresponsibility? The purpose of this writing is not to make you hard-hearted or selfish, but to help you view your kindness through the lens of wisdom. Together, we will explore 7 types of people whom the Bible warns against helping, not because they are unworthy of love, but because aiding them in the wrong way can do more harm than good. This world is full of people in genuine need of help, but it also abounds with those eager to take advantage of compassion. If we are not careful, we may become one of 2 types of people, either the foolish who are deceived or the enablers of wrongdoing. The world has no shortage of people like Judas Iscariot, who stood beside Jesus, dined at his table, received his love and teachings, yet still betrayed him for 30 pieces of silver. If Jesus, who knew the hearts of men, had a Judas beside him, how much more vulnerable are we mere humans to being deceived? Our prayer should not only be for a heart that loves, but also for eyes that discern who truly needs our help. God never calls us to be naive lambs among wolves without protection. He teaches us to be as shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves, Matthew 10:16. So let us embark on this journey of discovering the kinds of people the Bible warns us about, ensuring that our kindness does not become a double-edged sword, but a guiding light in the darkness. And now, let us explore the 7 types of people we should not help according to God's word and his teachings. These individuals exhibit the following clear characteristics. Number 1, the lazy person. The morning sky was gray, like a velvet curtain draped over the world, heavy and sluggish, much like those who refuse to lift a finger but always expect the kindness of others. In every era, every nation, and every community, such people exist. Those who passively watch the world turn, freely receiving without any intention of contributing. They are the lazy ones, and the scariest thing is not their laziness itself, but how the world, in its effort to help, inadvertently enables them to sink deeper into their own irresponsibility. The Bible, a book containing thousands of years of wisdom, has warned about such people. The Apostle Paul stated clearly in 2 Thessalonians 3, verse 10, "If anyone is not willing to work, let him not eat." This statement, though simple, pierces straight into the heart of the issue like an arrow. God is not a parent who spoils his children to the point of making them helpless. He is not a king who grants privileges to those who do not deserve them. He is a just God, and his justice never favors the lazy. Yet ironically, we, out of kindness, out of mercy, out of the belief that helping is always a good thing, often do the exact opposite of what the Bible teaches. Have you ever met someone like that? Someone who always has an excuse not to work. Someone who always has tragic stories to tell, reasons to justify themselves, and tears to elicit sympathy. They appear in every corner of life, from grown children still clinging to their parents to those who rely on the goodwill of society with no intention of standing on their own. I once knew a young man like that, a person whose family had spent their whole lives supporting, nurturing, and uplifting, only to realize that every time they helped, he became more helpless. He never tried to find a job because he knew that in the end, someone would give him money. He never learned to solve his own problems because he was used to having others do it for him. And so, while those around him worked tirelessly to earn a living, he simply sat, waited, and continued to demand. The harm in helping the lazy is not just that it weakens them, but that it weakens us as well. When we keep giving without requiring change, we are no longer helpers. We become part of the problem. A parent may love their child unconditionally, but if they fail to teach them the value of hard work, they have failed. A society may have compassion for those in need, but if it cannot distinguish between those who truly need help and those who are merely taking advantage, then that compassion becomes a flood that drowns everyone. Consider another biblical story, the parable of the talents, Matthew 25:14-30. When the master entrusted silver to his servants, he did not expect them to sit idly and wait for the money to grow on its own. He expected them to work, invest, and multiply what had been given to them. Those who did so were rewarded, but the lazy one, the one who buried his silver out of fear and refused to do anything, was punished. This is not a story about harshness. It is a profound lesson. God gives us talents, opportunities, and strength, not for us to waste, but for us to work, grow, and become useful. So, what is the solution? How do we help without enabling laziness? The answer is not in giving, but in teaching. We should not give people what they want, but help them achieve what they need. If a person is hungry, instead of giving them fish, teach them how to fish. If a person is poor, instead of handing them money, show them how to earn it. If a person fails, instead of carrying their burden for them, help them learn how to rise from their failure. Prayer is not a magic spell that turns lazy people into diligent ones, but an invitation for God to grant us wisdom in helping others. Pray that we can clearly see who truly needs help and who is merely taking advantage. Pray that we are not swayed by emotions, but can act according to God's guidance. And most of all, pray that we ourselves do not fall into laziness, not just physical laziness, but spiritual laziness. Because laziness is not just about refusing to work, it is about refusing to grow, to learn, and to walk the path that God has set before us. This world is not lacking in people who need help, but that does not mean everyone deserves it. Jesus, though full of love, still allowed the rich man to make his own choice to give up his wealth and follow him. He did not beg, did not persuade, and did not reluctantly bless those who were unwilling to change. And so must we. Help with love, but also with wisdom. Extend your hand, but do not close your eyes. And above all, remember that true kindness is not giving everything away, but giving in the right way. Number 2, the ungrateful. Under the fading twilight, the ancient stone streets of Jerusalem still echoed with the footsteps of those who had once received blessings, but had forgotten the one who had granted them. Perhaps no story in the Bible illustrates ingratitude more clearly than the account of the 10 lepers, Luke 17, or 11 to 19. Jesus, in his infinite mercy, healed them, freeing them from the disease that had made them outcasts, deemed unclean, and cast away from society. Yet out of the 10, only one, just one, returned to thank him. And the other 9? They walked away, perhaps in a hurry to reintegrate into the life they had once lost, perhaps too caught up in their newfound joy to remember the one who had given them a second chance. Ingratitude is not just forgetting to say thank you, it is taking grace for granted, treating blessings as entitlements rather than gifts. There is a harsh truth we all must face. Helping an ungrateful person does not make them more grateful. It only makes them demand more. A person who has grown accustomed to receiving without giving back, one who has learned that kindness can be exploited without consequence, will not stop. They will continue to reach out, continue to expect, continue to take until there is nothing left to take. The story of the 10 lepers is not just a lesson in gratitude. It is a warning. Not everyone who receives a blessing will remember the one who gave it. This is not only something that happened in the Bible, but something we see every day, right around us. How many parents have sacrificed everything for their children, only to be treated as though it was merely their duty? How many friends have exhausted themselves helping someone, only to be forgotten once there was nothing left to give? I once witnessed a father who did everything for his son. He worked tirelessly, saved every penny to give the boy a better life, and sacrificed all his personal dreams for the child he loved. But the son did not grow up with gratitude. Instead, he developed the belief that everything his father did was merely expected, something he was entitled to. And when the father could no longer provide, the son simply turned away, seeking someone else to fulfill his needs. So, is it wrong to help an ungrateful person? Not necessarily. But the truth is, when we keep helping without expecting appreciation, we are not performing an act of kindness. We are teaching them that gratitude is unnecessary. A person only truly values something when they understand its worth, and sometimes the only way for them to realize that worth is when it is no longer there. In life, sometimes the best thing we can do is not to continue giving, but to stop. Learning to say no is not harshness, it is wisdom. Jesus healed the lepers, but he did not chase after the 9 to demand their thanks. He knew that gratitude cannot be forced. It must come from a heart that truly recognizes the value of what has been received. Pray that we may clearly see who genuinely needs help and who is merely taking advantage. Pray that we have the courage to walk away when necessary so that we do not become victims of ingratitude. And above all, pray that we never become ungrateful ourselves, that each day, no matter how much or how little we receive, we remember to give thanks to God, the one who gives us every good thing. Number 3, the arrogant. Under the dazzling light of the throne, Pharaoh sat wrapped in power and pride as if the entire world revolved around his fingertips. He had everything, a mighty army, endless wealth, and a kingdom no one dared to oppose. But then a man appeared. Moses, the one who dared to stand before him, look him in the eye and say, "Let the Israelites go free." Pharaoh scoffed. He did not listen. He did not believe. Who could stand against a king like him? Who had the right to command him? But arrogance, like an invisible curse, often blinds people to warning signs. And so when the plagues came, when the Nile turned to blood, when hail rained down, when locusts swarmed, when darkness fell, and finally, when the firstborns died, Pharaoh realized he was not the master of fate, not the most powerful being in the universe. But by then, it was too late. There is something tragic about the arrogant. They do not heed advice, do not admit fault, and never believe they could be wrong. They build impenetrable walls around themselves, rejecting anything that might shake their self-importance. And when someone like that faces ruin, helping them is not noble, it is futile. You can warn them, but they will ignore you. You can advise them, but they will mock you. And when everything collapses, they will not turn back and say, "You were right." No, they will find someone else to blame, even you. I once knew an ambitious businessman who had an empire of promise in his hands. Everyone around him warned him to be cautious of the risks looming ahead, to pay attention to the signs of a changing market, but he did not listen. He believed he knew everything, that he alone could predict the future. And then, like an unavoidable prophecy, his empire crumbled, taking everything he had with it. Yet even then, he did not admit his mistakes. He did not say, "I should have listened." No, he blamed the people around him, the economy, anyone but himself. So, should we try to help such people? Perhaps the answer lies within the very story of the Bible. Moses did not try to argue with Pharaoh. He did not waste time trying to convince a man determined not to listen. He simply spoke the truth and let God handle the rest. Sometimes the wisest thing we can do is not to try and change someone, but to step back and let them learn their own lessons. Pray that we never let arrogance blind us, that we remain open to the wisdom of others. And pray that we have the strength to recognize when to let go, when to let others face the consequences of their own choices. Because sometimes the only lesson an arrogant person can truly learn is the one they must experience for themselves. Number 4, the deceitful and wicked. Under the flickering torchlight in the Garden of Gethsemane, a shadowy figure appeared, moving hastily yet deliberately. Behind him followed men armed with swords and clubs, their footsteps heavy against the gravel. He approached Jesus, wearing a smile that masked his true intent, and placed a kiss upon his cheek, a signal of betrayal carefully arranged with the chief priests. The cold clinking of 30 silver coins echoed in his pouch, a paltry sum in exchange for the life of the one who had loved him more than anyone ever had. But the cost of deceit never stops at a few coins. It leaves an indelible stain upon the soul. Judas Iscariot, who had walked with Jesus, heard his teachings, and witnessed his miracles, still chose to betray him for greed, forever becoming a symbol of treachery and falsehood. The deceitful and wicked know how to conceal their true nature. They never appear as traitors. Instead, they disguise themselves as trusted friends, as people in need, as pitiable victims. They wield the compassion of others like a weapon, turning kind-hearted people into prey for their schemes. And the scariest part? You often don't realize it until it's too late. Someone once told me that a liar never outright lies. They simply tell just enough of the truth to make you believe, but not enough for you to see the full picture. I once had a friend like that. A man so eloquent that you would trust him even when all the signs pointed to his deception. He borrowed money, not once, but many times, each instance accompanied by a perfectly reasonable excuse. His mother was ill, his business was struggling, he had been scammed out of his savings. Each time, I believed him. I helped him. Until one day, I uncovered the harsh reality. There was no sick mother, his business had never been in trouble, and the money had never been used for the reasons he claimed. I wasn't angry about the money, I was angry at myself for being deceived for so long. The deceitful and wicked do not merely steal material things, they steal our trust in humanity. They make us doubt those who genuinely need help. They cause us to lock the doors of our hearts for fear of being used again, and that perhaps is one of the most dangerous things they can do. The Bible warns us time and time again about such people. Proverbs 6:16-19 lists 7 things the Lord detests, among them a lying tongue and a heart that devises wicked schemes. To God, deceit is not merely a mistake. It is an abomination, an act completely opposed to his nature as the truth. And we, as his followers, are called to live in wisdom to avoid becoming victims of such schemes. So, what should we do when faced with liars? Jesus knew the true nature of Judas, yet he did not stop him. He did not try to change him, nor did he plead with him to reconsider. He let him walk the path he had chosen because a man determined to betray will not stop simply because you are kind to him. Sometimes the wisest course of action is not to save those who have embraced wickedness, but to let them face the consequences of their own choices. May we always have the discernment to recognize deceit, the wisdom to distinguish between those who truly need help and those who seek to exploit us. May we never allow our kindness to become a tool in the hands of the wicked. And though the world may be filled with traitors like Judas, may we hold fast to our faith, loving yet not blind, compassionate yet not foolish. For in the end, no matter how many layers of deception may cover it, the truth will always come to light, and God's justice never sleeps. Number 5, the destroyers and the ruiners. Under the crimson sunset of Samaria, the palace of King Ahab stood tall, a symbol of absolute power, yet within its walls echoed the whispers of conspiracy and wickedness. Beside him was Jezebel, a woman with a smile as sweet as honey, but a heart colder than stone. They ruled not only a kingdom, but also brought destruction upon anyone who stood in their way. When Naboth refused to give up his vineyard, he did not just lose his property, he lost his life, betrayed by the cunning and cruelty of this husband and wife pair. They were people who knew no limits, possessed no conscience, and would trample over anything to achieve their goals. The world has never lacked destroyers and ruiners. They wear different faces, perhaps a greedy leader, a liar who feeds off the kindness of others, or even a loved one who manipulates emotions to control and ruin your life. They do not simply seek help, they seek control. They do not just want to receive kindness, they want to turn you into a tool to serve their own purposes. And the most terrifying part? Sometimes you do not realize you have been used until everything has already fallen apart. I once knew such a person, a drunkard with hollow eyes and empty promises. He would always come to me in a wretched state, begging for another chance, pleading for help to turn his life around. And I, naive enough to believe in change, helped him not just once, but many times. I paid his debts, found him a job, and even took him into my own home when he had nowhere else to go. But every time I helped, he would fall back into his old ways, drowning in alcohol and deception. I asked myself, can such a person ever truly want to change? Or do they only seek someone to bear the consequences of their actions? Destroyers and ruiners do not only attack you with force, they attack through false weakness. They make you feel guilty for not helping them, make you believe that you are responsible for them. But the truth is, no one can save a person who does not want to be saved. No one can change someone who is unwilling to change. Jesus never encouraged weakness or tolerated evil. When he faced the hypocritical Pharisees, he did not try to please them or compromise with their deceit. He exposed them. He spoke the truth, knowing it would enrage them. And that is what we must also learn to do, to say no to those who destroy, to set boundaries, and to refuse to let them ruin our lives. May God grant us the wisdom to recognize such people, the courage to reject their manipulation, and the strength to walk in truth, even if it means distancing ourselves from those we once wished to save. For God has never called us to be victims of destruction, but to walk in his light, strong, wise, and full of courage. Number 6, the controlling and manipulative. I don't think there's anything more terrifying than someone who knows how to manipulate others, not just with words, but with emotions. These people don't need to raise a sword or threaten with harsh words. Instead, they use tearful eyes, subtle insinuations, and a false sense of fragility to make you believe that if you don't do as they say, you are the cruel one. They don't ask for help, they make you feel obligated to help. They don't give orders, they plant a fear in your heart, a fear of disappointing them, of being seen as heartless, of being labeled as cold and irresponsible. And once you are caught in their web, once you give in the first, second, and third time, you realize there is no way out. Once you allow them to control your emotions, you become nothing more than a puppet in their hands. I think of Delilah, the woman who manipulated one of the strongest warriors in the Bible, Samson. He was not a weak man physically. He tore apart a lion with his bare hands, lifted the gates of a city with supernatural strength, and defeated 1,000 enemies with nothing but a donkey's jawbone. But no matter how strong he was still brought down by a woman, not with a sword or spear, but with sweet words and false tears. "You don't love me," Delilah said each time Samson refused to reveal the secret of his strength. And with each refusal, she made him feel guilty, as if he was doing something wrong, as if he was the cruel one for not giving in to her wishes, until finally he gave in. And what happened? He was betrayed, captured by his enemies, blinded, and thrown into prison like a slave. There is a lesson here, one more important than any other. Not everyone who cries is a victim. Not everyone who speaks sweetly is sincere. And most of all, not everyone who makes you feel guilty is right. I once knew a mother like that. A mother who loved her children by controlling their every breath. She didn't hit them, she didn't yell, but she always had a way of making them believe that if they didn't follow her wishes, they were terrible children. If one of them wanted to pursue their dreams, she would sigh and say, "I sacrificed my whole life for you, and now you choose to break my heart?" If one of them wanted to live their own life, she would cry and say, "If I die from sadness, will you regret this?" And so that child grew up never daring to truly live, always haunted by the thought that if they did anything for themselves, they were betraying their mother. This is the most terrifying thing about manipulation. It doesn't just take away your freedom, it makes you willingly surrender it. You don't realize you are being controlled because you believe it's responsibility, love, duty. But God did not create us to be slaves to anyone, not to a parent, a lover, or a friend. He gave us free will, the ability to choose, and He never forces us to do anything through fear or guilt. He said, "The truth will set you free," John 8:32. And the truth is, love is not control. So what should you do when faced with a manipulative and controlling person? First, learn to recognize them. If someone always makes you feel guilty when you don't do what they want, if they always place responsibility on you without giving you a choice, if they use emotions to force you into submission, that is not love. That is manipulation. Second, set boundaries. This may be difficult because manipulators always know how to make you feel like you are the one at fault. But God does not call us to be slaves to anyone but Him. If someone is using love to control you, stand up and say, "No." Finally, pray, because nothing breaks the chains of control and manipulation like the power of God. He freed Samson even after he had made mistakes. He opened the eyes of those held captive by the enemy, and He can free you from the invisible chains you didn't even realize were binding you. May God give us the wisdom to see the truth, the strength to stand firm, and the courage to walk away from manipulators without guilt, because no one has the right to own our souls except God. No one has the power to force us except His true love. And anyone who demands that you trade your freedom for their love is not offering love, but chains. Number 7, the person who has no intention of changing. There is a certain kind of person that all of us have encountered at least once in our lives. Someone who makes mistakes over and over again, promises to change but never actually does. They are trapped in their own loop, spinning endlessly like a broken clock, always returning to the same place, always falling into the same pitfalls. And the saddest thing is, no matter how hard you try, you cannot pull them out of the hole they've dug for themselves. The Bible records one of the most heartbreaking stories of such people, the Israelites in the wilderness. God delivered them from slavery in Egypt with astonishing miracles. The Red Sea parted before their eyes, manna fell from the heavens to feed them, a pillar of cloud guided them by day, and a pillar of fire lit their path at night. Yet, despite witnessing all these wonders, they complained. They grumbled about the lack of meat, the shortage of water, the length of the journey, and how things weren't happening the way they expected. They even wished to return to Egypt, back to their lives of slavery, simply because they lacked the patience to trust in God. These people were not without opportunities to change. Every time they made a mistake, God patiently taught them, but they kept stumbling over the same stone, kept complaining, kept doubting. And in the end, an entire generation perished in the wilderness, never stepping foot into the promised land, not because God didn't want to take them there, but because they refused to change. This is a painfully clear lesson for anyone who is trying to help someone who refuses to help themselves. Perhaps you know someone like this, a gambling addict who always swears this is the last time, only to find themselves back at the table. A debtor who constantly borrows money, promising to repay but never does, only to keep borrowing again. A person trapped in a toxic relationship, getting hurt repeatedly but refusing to walk away. No matter how much you try, no matter how much you pray, advise, or assist them, they simply do not change. The worst part is that these people don't just drag themselves down, they drag down those who try to save them. You can pour out your time, money, and energy, but one day you will come to the painful realization that you cannot save someone who doesn't want to be saved. The Bible lays out an important principle: a man reaps what he sows, Galatians 6:7. Everyone is responsible for their own actions. Sometimes the best thing you can do for someone who refuses to change is not to continue helping them, but to let them face the consequences of their actions. When the Israelites kept rebelling, God allowed them to go their own way, and they ended up destroying themselves. When the prodigal son left home in the parable, his father did not chase after him, did not send him money to continue his reckless lifestyle. He let him hit rock bottom. Only when the young man had lost everything, when he realized his own foolishness, did he truly change and return home. We must learn to do the same. If someone keeps making the same mistakes without wanting to change, let them bear the consequences. Love them, but do not let your kindness become an excuse for them to continue down the wrong path. Pray for them, but do not let their failures become a burden that crushes your own soul. And above all, remember that true change does not come from human pressure. It comes from God's transformation. Sometimes the best thing you can do is step back, let go, and allow God to do his work. Lord, I ask you for the wisdom to know when to help someone and when to step back. Help me not to become an enabler of others' mistakes just because I fear hurting their feelings. Give me faith that you can change even the hardest of hearts in your way, in your time. And teach me to love in the right way, a love that does not enable, that is not blind, but a love that truly leads others to real transformation in you. Amen. Perhaps by now you already understand how to recognize the types of people you should not help, right? And this is all you need. Eternal Light asks for your permission to continue. There is an ancient story often told by those who seek the truth, a pilgrim crossing the desert, enduring scorching days and freezing nights, carrying a water pouch to share with the parched souls he meets along the way. But who among them is truly worthy of receiving those precious drops? The pilgrim cannot save everyone, and if he chooses wrongly, he will exhaust himself before reaching his destination. The same is true for us. Kindness is a precious light, but if it shines in the wrong place, it can become a beacon for darkness. How do we discern who is worthy of help? How do we avoid becoming victims of our own generosity? The Bible provides clear principles, and in our journey of faith, we must learn to set boundaries. Biblical wisdom teaches not only mercy, but also the right way to practice it. Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due when it is in your power to act, Proverbs 3:27. A simple yet weighty statement. Not everyone is entitled to our kindness. This is not because we lack compassion, but because mercy requires wisdom to prevent it from being exploited. 10 lepers were healed by Jesus, but only one returned to give thanks. If you help someone today, will they appreciate it or will they take it for granted? If Jesus did not shy away from that question, why should we? There are the poor who are diligent, and there are the poor who are lazy. Some truly need a helping hand, while others merely seek someone to take advantage of. The Apostle Paul made this clear in 2 Thessalonians 3:10. The one who is unwilling to work shall not eat. This is not cruelty, it is wisdom. Helping a lazy person does not improve their situation, it only makes them dependent. To determine who is truly deserving of help, observe how they respond to what they receive. Do they value it? Do they change? Or do they simply demand more? An ungrateful person never knows when to stop, and helping them is like pouring water into a broken vessel. Jesus did not only bless those who followed him, he also established principles for helping others. He told us to love your enemies, Matthew 5:44, but he did not tell us to become their victims. Jesus helped the poor, but he also judged the hypocrites. Helping does not mean tolerating evil. John the Baptist did not hesitate to rebuke King Herod for his sins, even though it cost him his life. Thus, the biblical principle of helping others is not just about giving, but about guiding them toward true transformation. If your help enables someone to continue in their wrongdoing, it is not help. It is complicity in their downfall. So how do we set boundaries when helping others? First, pray. Seek God's guidance before giving anything away. He sees what we cannot. When Jesus was tempted by the devil, he did not respond with weak kindness, but with the powerful words of Scripture. Do not put the Lord your God to the test. Matthew 4:7. Sometimes the right thing to do is to say no. Help, but do not be manipulated. Love, but do not let love become a burden that drags you down. Setting boundaries is not selfishness. It means valuing kindness enough not to let it be abused. If an addict asks for money, does giving it to them truly help? If a liar promises to change but never does, should you continue to trust them? If someone always blames their circumstances but never takes responsibility, should you keep lifting them up? Setting boundaries and helping others not only protects you, but also teaches others to take responsibility for their own lives. Jesus did not chase after those who rejected him, nor did he hold on to those who refused to change. He loved them, but he also let them bear the consequences of their choices. The story of the pilgrim in the desert ends with an important lesson. He could not save everyone, but he saved the right ones, those who cherished every drop of water and were willing to walk their own path. We must do the same. Kindness is a gift, but it holds true value only when given wisely. Be wise, pray, and remember that helping the right person not only changes their life, but also preserves your own peace.